All right, next question. Julian Leal from Columbia. Are you a big telly dude?
No. I always played, I love Fender, but I was not necessarily a telly guy. And I was more of a Les Paul or SG or a Stratocaster. But my first real guitar, and the guitar that I made the most progress on when I was first learning, was a early 60s Music Master by Fender. And it was a great guitar. It just had one pickup, but the neck was great. And I'm very fond of Fender guitars, Jazz Masters, and I mean, any, the Rickenbacker and or Rickenbacker, however you want to pronounce it. But Fender and Gibson were my main two guitars, and probably my favorite Fender guitar would be like a 57 V-neck Stratocaster, and SG guitars, they were great. I mean, the early 60s SGs, you could play it all the way up the neck and actually press down and fret the pickup and make an extra high note there. I love those guitars. They're light, thin, easy to play. But the guitar I played the most was the Les Paul.
Okay, great. Don from Florida. Joe, are you wearing a toupee?
Brittany, reach over and grab my hair. Okay, next question.
I can assure you no.
Brittany is a professional hairstylist and makeup artist.
All right, so Dean Power from Nashville. I'd like to see a list of all the acts that played in the very building you're in, the Municipal Auditorium, along with the history of the building. I saw many bands there in the 60s and 70s. At the time in Nashville, the auditorium was the place to go. So it's only natural that the history of the place should be included in the museum. By the way, tell Joe hello.
Hi, Dean. There is, one of the things that's cool, on the outside of the building, they put a lot of the actual tickets blown up by the entrance up on the auditorium level above us, which is like a 10,000 seat auditorium. I tell everybody, I mean, the easiest thing to do is from when they opened this auditorium up in 1962 until they built, at the time it was called the GEC, the Gaylord Entertainment Center, but now it's the Bridgestone Arena here. If you've been to a concert in Nashville, that's where you go. And I think the Bridgestone opened up in the mid-90s. I don't know the date, but from 62 until they opened up what is now the Bridgestone, it's easier to say that the Beatles and Hendrix didn't play here than try to name everybody that did. All the Dick Clark caravans, the James Brown to Elvis, the great Charlie Daniel volunteer jams that were here, Led Zeppelin, Ozzy, Conway Twitty, George Jones. They were all here. I mean, but I think if you go to the Municipal Auditorium website, it may have a list of a lot of the artists that played here. Elvis played here one day, played 2 shows.
Yeah, cool. Stephen from Houston, Texas. Mm-hmm. Joe, who are some of your favorite songwriters, guitarists, and singers? Thanks.
Well, obviously McCartney and Lennon. Oh, golly. There's so many great songwriters here in Nashville. I'm afraid to say any of them because I'll miss some. Harlan Howard, I was lucky enough to write with Harlan. Harlan is the guy that said country music is 3 chords and the truth, and that's been quoted so many times. But Nashville is full of great songwriters, and I don't mind mentioning Harlan because everybody's going to say Harlan. But there's so many here. But I will tell you, as far as pop music goes, rock and roll, Obviously Chuck Berry was started it. Brian Wilson and his co-writers, Crosby, Stills, Nash, Young, Neil Young. And Zeppelin and Allman Brothers, they were doing Howlin' Wolf and all those great blues guys songs. Are the ones that they did were the best were written by the Chicago blues guys. But Tom Petty to me and Mike Campbell, Mike both as a guitar player and as in his new band Dirty Knobs are great. And but I think he's probably the most talented guitar player overall of anybody. I mean, you've got Hendrix and all. I mean, I know Terry Kath, all these. I mean, they're all great, but I have never heard a guitar player with a more. The word is infectious. That writes more melodic leads that you hear it one time and you remember it than Mike Campbell. His slide playing, you can tell it immediately. The way he bends and overbends, he's just unbelievable. And as to me, I'm hip to all the Dwayne Allman and Hendrix. I mean, I love them. But for AM radio, I have Sirius radio for one reason, to hear the Tom Petty channel. And then Tom, I think, was maybe in Dylan. I have never heard a Tom Petty record that includes the song that I didn't like, and most of them I love. You might not be able to tell it, but I really like Tom Petty.
I feel like you're leaving so many out.
I'm leaving out a ton of people, but
Glenn Campbell,
unbelievable. I mean, I love Glenn. I mean, God. I mean, as far one of the greatest guitar
singers,
players.
did you mention? Are you combine them all together? Singer, songwriter, guitarist.
Oh, well. I just said singer. I just said songwriter and guitarist there. Singers. God, the guy, the original singer with Journey, yeah. But I want to know what love is with Foreigner. Yes. Unbelievable singer. Obviously. Zeppelin, and I loved Greg Allman singing, and Peter Cetera. Oh God, I don't know. It's just so many.
Okay, we'll move on. You love a lot of people. You didn't even get into people now.
Well, no, George Jones is the greatest country singer of all time.
The Chili Peppers, you love.
I like the Red Hot. John Frusciante, great guitar player, and our friend Chad Smith on drums. He's, he didn't get enough credit, but Garth is great. And he's the greatest entertainer I've ever seen, and he can sing about anything.
All right, perfect. Lee F. from Perth, Western Australia. I love it there. Hi, Joe. Great show. Have you ever met Tony Iommi?
Tony.
Am I saying that right? From Black Sabbath.
Iommi. No. I wish. I mean, he's another great guitar player, especially if you know his history. With his fingers being cut off at the end and using thimbles and everything to play. And he created a whole genre of music. His playing. I don't think I pronounced his name right, but I'm a big fan.
And in your opinion, who was the first hard rock metal band? And then he says, cheers. And this is Lee.
Well, you really got me and All Day and All the Night with the Kinks, hard rock, Is that right? That's what they were saying. Rock metal, yeah. I think that was probably You Really Got Me and was maybe it,
Okay. Steve Hornshaw from Romania. Any experiences, meetings, musicians involved with Lee Hazelwood and Nancy Sinatra when they recorded in Nashville?
No.
Jason Z from Florida. Loved your video about Bob Dylan and the Nashville sessions. Was wondering if there will be any future videos diving deep into recording in the Nashville area like this one did. Also, do you foresee doing any videos about Easy Eye Sound Studios in Nashville? Thank you.
Well, I've been over there, and I've got Dan. He has an exhibit here where I think the first electric guitar he bought, and his first acoustic guitar that he bought, we have on exhibit here. He uses Gene Chrisman from the Memphis Boys on drums, and Bobby Wood from the Memphis Boys. And so I know him through them more than anything. But he's a real Dan's.
And Dwayne?
And Dwayne Eddy, yeah, he is. And Dwayne, he is he's a real, historic. He knows the great players, and he uses them, and his singing and songwriting just abilities just go from one end to the other. One of the most talented producers and commercially players I've heard. And the Black Keys, too.
Sure. All right. Ina Salders, Texas. I have been a fan, she said, I have been of Joe South since I was 13, and she's 64 now. My question is there a possibility of being a book written about him? Did you understand that question?
No, I don't speak that.
Okay, start over. I think
is there going to be a book written about Joe South?
Yeah.
I don't know. I love Joe South. I was really very lucky when my good friends Tom Long, who was from Atlanta and used to work at Lowry Music, Butch Lowry, they had Southern Track Studio, and this year we did our award show. Joe was inducted as a member of the original Muscle Shoals rhythm section because the actual rhythm section used Joe and Reggie Young both so much that they wanted to include them in their induction, and so that gave me the opportunity for us to do one of my favorite songs, which was "Hush" by the Deep Purple version that Joe wrote. But Joe's version and Billy Joe Royal's version of that song were both great. But we did play. Joe was inducted this year in Musicians Hall of Fame in October of 19, and it was a lot of fun. I was actually the first time I picked a guitar up in 8 years, and I kind of invited myself to play. We had Paul Schaefer playing the great organ part, and he also was the MC of the show. But there was nobody better to do the Deep Purple organ riff than Paul, and so I'm a fan too.
Paul from Vancouver. Why are the guitars in the Hendrix section of the museum strung right-handed?
Well, there's only one in here. You can only have one $400,000 or $500,000 guitar per exhibit, And there's not, really, and also you need to verify they're for real. Well, the one that we have was given. Okay, I don't know if you know the history of how the experience happened, but Chaz Chandler, the bass player from the Animals, was given the heads up about Hendrix when he was playing in the Village in New York. And he was getting ready to leave the Animals, and so he was the one that took Hendrix to London and said, "Hey, I'm going to manage you." And so he took Hendrix and put him with Noel Redding and Mitch Mitchell and created the experience. And so the road crew that used to be the roadies for the Animals became the road crew, to my knowledge, for the Jimi Hendrix Experience. And one of the guys was named James Tabby Wright. And there's a book, he wrote a book, and about being a, being a roadie and being on the experiences they had on the road with Hendrix and the Animals and so forth. And he acquired quite a few guitars. Jimmy was very generous, and he'd be at Manny's in New York, Manny's Music, and buy 8 or 10 guitars and have them shipped over or whatever. And so whenever he would get a new batch come in, to my understanding, James would, hey Jimmy, can I have one of your old ones now that you got some more? And so that's the guitar that we have behind me right here, the 67 Sunburst Strat that I believe you're speaking of. James was right-handed, so he had the nut flipped on it and put the strap button back. But if you looked really close, you'll see that he wasn't a real guitar player. He didn't know you had to reset the intonation on the saddles. So the saddles are still set in reverse for the big E to be on where the little E goes, okay? And so forth. So it's the further up the neck you play it, the more obvious it is that it goes out of tune. But we didn't change that because we wanted to leave it like it was when we got it. But I get this question so much that I think I might flip the nut back around and put the strap button back where Hendrix had it, just so people will stop asking that question. But thanks for the question.
Yeah. Okay, Fran, do you have an exhibit with the Everly Brothers gear or equipment?
No, but we did induct Don Everly for the Iconic Riff Award this past October for his rhythm guitar playing on Wake Up Little Susie. Don Everly, Phil Everly played for us in the I think 2008 induction ceremony. He played Let It Be Me with the Crickets, who were inducted that year. The Crickets became the Everly Brothers road band and some of the studio stuff as well, like Till I Kissed You. We have the drum set that was used on Till I Kissed You. That was J.I. Allison, the drummer from the Crickets. He gave us that drum set that he used with Buddy Holly and the Everly Brothers. And we have the stand-up bass that belonged to one of the pioneer, before the Nashville A-Team, the pioneer session players, Lightning Chance was his name, and Lightning played stand-up bass, and the bass that we have of Lightning's was used on the early Everly Brothers records, Wake Up Little Susie, All I Have to Do Is Dream, Hound Dog, all those records, all the Cadence label records pretty much is what that bass was played on. So that's all we have at the moment.
Paul Abel from Indiana. I met Chuck Berry in the late 70s in the LA airport, and he was a very engaging, impressive person.
I'm jealous.
Now being in my late 50s, I'm still impressed with his remarkable talent, energy, and charm. Who would you compare him to in this generation of talented musicians?
I think I've already said it. That'd be Tom Petty. I mean, Tom was, because, really the songwriting, his guitar playing, his innovation of the guitar, taking his keyboard player Johnny's piano riffs and kind of putting them on guitar was so unique. And his songwriting abilities were just, incredible. And like John Lennon said, you could really name rock and roll Chuck Berry. And he influenced everybody. I'm seeing a lot of people now doing their own versions of Tom Petty songs. And I think that his catalog of songs are going to become more prevalent on radio now because people are hungry for really good, well-written songs. And he and Mike Campbell, you have to include Mike on that as a co-writer. I heard Boys of Summer on the radio, and I was in the video, everything. It just flipped me out. I just thought, man, what a incredible demo or video, and the song. I mean, it was just from the very beginning of it was incredible. And I was thinking, man, Don Henley, good gosh, man. You know, even without the rest of the Eagles, I mean, what a one of my favorite records. And then I find out, oh, it was Mike Campbell who had written the music to it, and Don obviously put his incredible ability to write lyrics with it, and so. But songs are the key, I think, to any longevity with anybody. And I was like, I told somebody, I think it was maybe Brian Ray, you know, how important the songs are, because if not, no, it was on, it hadn't come out yet. It was the interview we did with Robbie Krieger, because Robbie wrote, you know, so many of the hits for the Doors, and they got a lot of covers as well. Like My Fire got covered by a gazillion people. Yeah. But it was great songs, and you know, here in Nashville, a lot of people don't realize that they come to town and they cut a demo with the song they wrote, and it sounds unbelievable because the musicians are so unbelievably great, and the producers are great, and the studio and the engineers and everybody. But if that was all it was, everybody would come to town and have a hit. You know, it's something, and it's not just having a hit song. You have to have the right song with the right artist. So anyway, I still have to go back to Tom Petty, I think.
Mark G. from Connecticut, wondering if you have Don Fogelberg in the hall or are planning on it. Also, how about Jim Croce? I know that's two, but still curious. Thank you.
I have been talking to Jim Croce's guitarist sister for a number of years, trying to get he played all those great riffs. I hate it that I don't remember his name right now, but he was always on my mind as somebody that I'd like to have an exhibit on in the museum, because he was such an incredible guitar player. Musicians Hall of Fame, let me say that a lot of people will ask about why isn't so-and-so in here? Well, unless they are known as an extremely good musician, they could be a great singer. We've got Glenn Campbell in here because of his work with the Wrecking Crew in L.A., but he was also a great singer, as we all know. But some people get confused. Well, the reason he's in here is for his guitar playing. The fact that he sang Wichita Lineman and Phoenix and all those great, Galveston, all those great records was just a plus. And so I think Dan, to my knowledge, was a really good songwriter, and what he played for himself was great. I don't know that I've ever seen him nominated by the Musicians Union members nominate who we induct here as far as the actual Hall of Fame, but we can put anybody in here for a museum exhibit. That doesn't mean they were inducted into the Hall of Fame, if you know what I'm saying there as far as difference goes. If I had Dan Fogelberg guitar, heck yeah, I'd put it in here. Actually, Longer was one of the songs that was played at my wedding, and one of my favorite all-time songs, and he's a great singer. And and Jim Croce again, I was destroyed when he died. I just couldn't believe it. And but so yes, if I could get either of those guys' instruments, I would definitely put them in the museum. As far as them being inducted into the Hall of Fame, they would need to be nominated by their peers before we could make that call. We're going to have to take a break in a minute. One more question.
Okay, quick one. Daryl, I said quick one, I don't know yet. Daryl Wesley from Winburn, PA. Hello. One of the things I collect are copies, not originals, of musician AFM contracts pertaining to Elvis Presley's recording sessions. I would be curious to know if the Musicians Hall of Fame has any session contracts pertaining to Elvis Presley, either on display or in the archives.
We don't. That's long and short. But I will say that DJ, we inducted DJ, we inducted Scotty. Scotty was the first musician I told that we were going to do this, and he was the first one and one of the few that actually donated a guitar or an instrument to us, and James Burton. So love Elvis. We just don't have any of those contracts. Give me another one real quick.
All right, NVRAM boy. Have you ever been to Curley Putman Jr.'s farm, and is there a recording studio on the farm?
Okay, well, Curley was a really good friend of mine, and actually, Curley, Bucky Jones, and myself wrote the song that I told you about that was number 2 for 2 weeks. I meant every word he said, on a singer named Ricky Van Shelton. And Curley and Bucky and I were all on the Nashville Songwriters Award show that night. And yeah, I went out to Curley's house. We wrote he turned the garage that Wings rehearsed in. Curley enclosed it and made it into a music room, but it was not a recording studio. But that was where, and yes, Junior's farm was written about Curley Putman's farm while they stayed out there. Hey, we'll be right back after this. Thanks for watching.